Picture the last time you walked into a dim room at night, maybe heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, and you had to wait a few seconds for your eyes to catch up to the darkness. That slow, fumbling moment, where the shapes in the room only sharpen after a pause, is your eyes quietly telling you something, and there is a humble green vegetable, one that is probably sitting in your refrigerator or your freezer right now, that feeds the exact part of your eye responsible for fixing that. Eaten in the evening, before you sleep, it delivers two specific pigments straight to the center of your vision, the very pigments that thin out and fade as we move past 60. And this is not a fringe idea. It comes from one of the largest eye studies ever funded by the National Institutes of Health. I am Dr. Robert Lane. For more than 21 years, I have worked in neurology, and that means I have spent my career studying the brain and the nervous system. And here is something most people never realize. Your eyes are not separate from your brain. The retina, the light-sensing tissue at the back of your eye, is actually brain tissue. It is the one piece of your nervous system a doctor can look at directly simply by shining a light through the front of your eye. So when I talk to you about protecting your vision, I am really talking about protecting a part of your brain. And after 60, that is one of the most precious things you own. So if you have noticed that reading the newspaper takes a little more light than it used to, or that night driving has started to feel uncertain, or that faces across a room are not as crisp as they once were, I want you to stay with me, relax your shoulders, and give me the next few minutes. What I am going to share is gentle, it is simple, and you can start it tonight with food you already know. Before we go further, if you find that Health Explained slowly and honestly is useful to you, take one quiet second to like this video and to subscribe. It genuinely helps me reach more people over 60 who deserve to hear this in plain language, and it costs you nothing at all. Now let me tell you what is really happening inside your eye, because once you understand it, the rest will make complete sense. Let me start with the center of your vision. Right at the back of your eye, in the middle of the retina, there is a tiny spot about the size of the head of a pin. Doctors call it the macula. It is small, but it does the heavy lifting. The macula is responsible for your sharp, central, detailed vision. It is what lets you read a price tag, recognize your grandchild's face, thread a needle, and see the lines on the road. The rest of your retina handles the edges, the side vision, the sense of movement. But the fine detail, the part of sight that makes life rich and independent, that all happens in this one small spot. Now here is what most people do not know. Sitting right inside that macula is a layer of colored pigment. It is yellow, and it is made of two substances called lutein and zeaxanthin. These are not vitamins your body makes on its own. You can only get them from your diet. And they do two remarkable things. First, they act like a pair of built-in sunglasses sitting in front of your most precious cells and filtering out the harsh, high-energy blue light that comes from the sun, from your television, and from the screen of your phone. Second, they act like tiny sponges that soak up the damage of everyday living, the kind of slow wear and tear that builds up in any tissue that works hard every waking hour for decades. Let me give you a picture for this. Imagine the macula is a delicate garden, and that yellow pigment is a shade cloth stretched above it. When the shade cloth is thick and full, the garden underneath is protected from the harsh midday sun, and it thrives. But as we age, and especially if our diet is low in these two pigments, that shade cloth grows thin. Light pours through. The garden underneath begins to wilt slowly, season after season, in a way you do not notice from one day to the next. That thinning shade cloth is, in plain terms, one of the things that sets the stage for the most common cause of vision loss in older adults. That condition has a name. It is called age-related macular degeneration. It is the leading cause of severe central vision loss in people over 60 in this country. It does not usually make you completely blind, but it can steal the center of your sight, the very part you use to read, to drive, to see the face of the person you love sitting across the table. And it tends to creep in so gradually that many people do not notice until a meaningful amount has already been lost. Let me explain how it sneaks up, because the slowness is the dangerous part. In the early stages, you may notice nothing at all. Then, little by little, straight lines might start to look slightly wavy. A door frame, the edge of a tile floor, a line of print in a book might develop the faintest bend that was never there before. Colors can lose a touch of their richness. And there may be a small, blurry, or dim patch right in the middle of where you are looking, the kind of thing you can almost talk yourself out of noticing. Because it happens to both eyes at different speeds, your stronger eye often covers for the weaker one, and you simply do not realize how much has changed until you happen to close one eye and look. This is exactly why it slips past so many good, careful people. It does not arrive with pain or drama. It arrives like dusk, so slowly that you do not see the light fading. I do not tell you this to frighten you. I tell you because there is real, hopeful science here, and it points to something you can act on at your own kitchen table. Here is where that large study comes in. The National Eye Institute, which is part of the National Institutes of Health, ran a major research project called the Age-Related Eye Disease Study, and then a second, even larger version of it. Thousands of older adults took part, and one of the clearest findings was this. The people whose diets were lowest in lutein and zeaxanthin saw a meaningful benefit when those two pigments were added in. In that group, adding lutein and zeaxanthin was linked to roughly a 25% lower risk of their macular degeneration progressing to the advanced, sight-threatening stage. Let me be honest and precise with you, because you deserve that. This does not mean a vegetable cures eye disease, and it does not mean it works the same for everyone. What it means is that these two pigments genuinely matter for the health of your macula, and that getting more of them from food is a sound, sensible thing to do as you age. So the real question becomes simple. Where do you get lutein and zeaxanthin in the richest, most natural form from food you already trust? And that brings us to the vegetable I promised you at the very beginning. That vegetable is spinach. I know, it is not exotic. It is not a rare berry from a far-off mountain or some powder you have to order from the other side of the world. It is plain, ordinary, green spinach, the same leaf you might have pushed around your plate as a child. But when it comes to feeding that yellow pigment in your macula, spinach is one of the very richest and most reliable sources on the planet. Cup for cup, dark leafy greens like spinach carry a generous load of exactly the two pigments your central vision is hungry for. Nature, it turns out, packed the medicine for your eyes into one of the most common and affordable vegetables in the store. Let me tell you about one of my patients because her story is the reason I talk about this so often. I will call her Eleanor. She was 71, sharp as a tack, and she came to me worried. Not about her eyes at first, but about her memory and her sleep. During our conversations, she mentioned, almost in passing, that her eye doctor had recently told her there were early changes in her macula, the kind that come before macular degeneration. She was quietly terrified. Her own mother had lost her central vision in her later years and had to give up reading, which had been the great joy of her life. Eleanor told me she would do anything to keep her own eyesight, but she felt helpless, as if it were simply out of her hands. I told her it was not entirely out of her hands. I explained what I am explaining to you now, about the macula, about those two pigments, and about feeding them through her diet, and I gave her one small, doable change to start with. She did not need to overhaul her whole life. She just needed to bring more of the right greens into her evenings. She agreed to try, and when I saw her some months later, she was not in tears or anything dramatic like that, but she told me something simple that has stayed with me. She said, for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was on her own side again, like she was doing something for her eyes instead of just waiting and worrying. Her eye doctor was pleased with how steady things looked. That feeling of being back in the driver's seat of your own health is exactly what I want for you. So let me show you exactly how to use spinach for this, because the details genuinely matter. First, the form. You can use fresh spinach or frozen spinach, and here is a small secret that surprises people. Frozen spinach is perfectly good for this purpose, sometimes even better, because it is picked and frozen at its peak, and a smaller, more concentrated pile of cooked spinach can carry more of these pigments than a big, fluffy bowl of raw leaves. So do not feel you must buy fresh every time. A bag of frozen spinach in your freezer is a fine and affordable choice. Second, and this is the most important tip of all, you must pair your spinach with a little healthy fat. Lutein and zeaxanthin are what we call fat-soluble. That means your body simply cannot absorb them well unless some fat is present at the same meal. This is the single most common mistake I see. People eat a plain dry salad of raw spinach with no oil, and most of the precious pigment passes right through them, unused. So do not eat your spinach naked. Add a drizzle of olive oil. Cook it gently with a little oil or butter. Pair it with an egg, which carries its own lutein in a form your body loves. Stir it into a dish that already has some healthy fat in it. The fat is the key that unlocks the door. Third, gentle cooking actually helps. Lightly sautéing or steaming spinach softens those tough leaf walls and makes the pigments easier for your body to reach. You do not want to boil it to death for 20 minutes, which can wash nutrients away, but a gentle, brief cook with a little oil is a wonderful way to prepare it. Now, why the evening, why before bed? Let me be straight with you, because honesty is the whole point of this channel. The headline here is not some magic about midnight. The real proven power is simply eating these greens regularly, day after day, so that the pigment in your macula stays well supplied. That is what the science most strongly supports. The reason I suggest the evening meal is practical and human. Dinner is the meal most of us actually sit down to, with time and a real plate of food. It is the easiest meal to add a generous serving of greens to, with a little oil in a way you will genuinely keep doing. And eating these pigments with your largest, most relaxed meal of the day, alongside healthy fat, gives your body a calm, unhurried window to absorb them well. So think of the evening not as a magic hour, but as the meal where this good habit is most likely to stick. Let me quickly cover the common mistakes so you can sidestep them. The first, which I already mentioned, is eating your greens with no fat. That alone can waste most of the benefit. The second mistake is doing it once, feeling virtuous, and then forgetting about it for 2 weeks. This works through quiet consistency. The pigment in your macula builds up slowly over weeks and months, the way you might slowly fill a reservoir. A single serving will not transform your sight overnight, but a steady habit, several times a week, genuinely feeds that protective layer over time. The third mistake is thinking more is always better and eating enormous amounts in one sitting. You do not need a mountain. A solid, regular serving, the kind that fits comfortably in your cupped hands when raw, or about half of that when cooked down several times a week, is a sensible and effective target. Now, here is the honest safety part, because I promised you honesty, and you deserve it. For the vast majority of people, eating more spinach is simply healthy, ordinary food, and nothing to worry about. But there are 2 groups who should have a quick word with their own doctor first. The first is anyone taking a blood thinner, especially the medication called warfarin. Spinach is very high in vitamin K, which affects how that particular medication works. This does not mean you cannot eat greens. It simply means you should keep your intake steady and consistent rather than swinging wildly, and you should let your doctor know so they can keep your dose right. Please, never change a medication on your own. Always do that together with your doctor. The second group is anyone with a history of kidney stones of a certain type, because spinach is high in something called oxalate. If that is you, your doctor can guide you on the right amount. For everyone else, this is just good, honest food. And let me say this clearly because it is important. Food is wonderful, and it is real, but it is not a substitute for your eye doctor. If you are over 60, the single most powerful thing you can do for your vision is to get a regular dilated eye exam. That is how macular degeneration and other conditions are caught early, when there is the most that can be done. So please, eat your greens and also see your eye doctor. The two work hand in hand. One feeds your eyes, the other watches over them. Now let me give you the trick that turns this from a nice idea into a habit that actually lasts. The secret is to attach it to something you already do every single evening. You already make dinner. So let dinner be your reminder. Make a simple rule for yourself. Green on the plate, with a little oil, most nights. Keep a bag of frozen spinach in the freezer so you are never caught without it. A handful tossed into a pan with olive oil, a scramble of eggs and spinach, a warm bowl of soup with greens stirred in at the end. None of this is hard. You are not adding a chore to your life. You are simply adding one good green habit to a meal that already happens. And here is a small bonus that stacks right on top. Spinach is not the only place these pigments live. Kale, collard greens, and broccoli carry them too, and so do egg yolks, which deliver lutein in an especially absorbable form. So if you scramble an egg with your spinach, or you rotate in some kale or broccoli through the week, you are giving your macula an even broader, richer supply. Variety keeps it interesting, and it keeps the good habit alive. So let me bring this all together for you. Deep in the center of your eye, in a tiny spot called the macula, sits a layer of yellow pigment made of two substances, lutein and zeaxanthin, that act as both sunglasses and a sponge for your most precious vision. That pigment thins as we age, and a thin layer is part of the story of macular degeneration, the leading cause of central vision loss after 60. A large study from the National Eye Institute showed that these two pigments genuinely matter for the health of the macula. And one of the very best, most affordable food sources of them is plain green spinach, especially when you cook it gently, pair it with a little healthy fat, and eat it regularly, most easily at your evening meal. It costs almost nothing. It asks almost nothing of you. And it helps protect the very things you most want to keep: your reading, your driving, the faces you love, and your freedom to live on your own terms. If this was helpful to you, and you would like more simple, honest explanations like this one, please subscribe and stay with us here. This channel exists to help you keep your mind clear, your sleep deep, and your senses sharp well past 60, and I would be honored to walk that road with you. Take good care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one. And one important closing note. This video is for general educational purposes only, and it is not medical advice. Always speak with your own qualified healthcare provider, and especially your eye doctor, before making any changes to your diet, your supplements, or your medications. Your doctor knows your body and your history, so bring this idea to them and let them help you use it